Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Part 1. Okay, so if you have not watched my introduction video on Romanticism and Rime of the Ancient Mariner, please pause this. Please go back and watch that. You will not understand this poem without understanding what I told you, and that you have to know about frame stories. You have to know about the idea of the spirits around the earth, the South Pole spirit, the North Pole spirit, and all of that. You just have to know. Otherwise, this won't make any sense. So please go back and watch that. Okay, well, welcome back. So let's do it. Remember the italicized items, whether they're on the side or in the poem themselves. Those are just summaries of what you should have already known up at that point. It's just re-describing what he has already described so you can better understand it. And let's go. So he starts off with an argument, and the argument is basically a summary of what's about to happen. Now, clearly, I'm not going to read the argument in Latin. Not going to happen. But I will read it in English, so let's go. Argument. How a ship having passed the line, and the line is the equator. Whenever they say the line and it's capitalized like that, they mean the biggest line on the earth, which would be the equator, was driven by storms to the old country towards the South Pole. And how from thence she made her course to the tropical latitude of the great Pacific Ocean, and of the strange things that befell, and in what manner the ancient mariner came back to his own country. Okay, so that's just a summary of the whole poem. It kind of tells us that the ship is going to be taken from the top of the north from his home. It's going to be dragged to the line, then down to the South Pole. Then it's going to be brought back up again, and somewhere after this, the ancient mariner is going to make it back home again. Are you ready? Now, remember, the ancient mariner is telling this story to the wedding guest going in. Remember, he stopped 3 guys, and one of them is forced to stay because of his glittering eye, his hypnagogic eye. So since he's telling this wedding guest the story, we know that the mariner survives the story that he's going to tell, because here he is telling it after the fact. Are you ready? Let's begin. Okay, part 1. An ancient mariner meeteth 3 gallants bidden to a wedding feast, and detaineth one. I just want to point out, remember, one of the elements of romantic literature is the idea of medieval settings or concepts. Look at those words. Meeteth, gallants, detaineth, bidden. These are all very Middle Ages type words. It just gives it a little bit of, I don't know, romantic flair. So let's go. It is an ancient mariner, and he stoppeth one of 3. By thy long beard and glittering eye, now wherefore stoppest thou me? The bridegroom's doors are opened wide, and I am next of kin. The guests are met, the feast is set. Mayest hear the merry din? So he says, what are you stopping me for? The wedding's starting, I can hear the music. In fact, I'm in the wedding. Get out of my way. He holds him with his skinny hand. There was a ship, quoth he. Hold off, unhand me, gray-beard loon. Eftsoons his hands dropped he. So he starts to tell him the story, and the guy drops his hand off him and he says, get off me, man. I got to go into my wedding. The wedding guest is spellbound by the eye of the old seafaring man and constrained to hear his tale. He holds him with his glittering eye. The wedding guest stood still and listens like a 3 years child. The mariner hath his will. So the man literally cannot leave. He is hypnotized by this glittering eye. So we're finding out that this man has the power to hypnotize people or to control their minds a little bit. Here, excuse me, I had something in my throat. Let's continue. The wedding guest sat on a stone. He cannot choose but hear. And thus spoke on that ancient man, that bright-eyed mariner. The ship was cheered, the harbor cleared. Merrily did we drop. Below the kirk, below the hill, below the lighthouse top. So he's starting to tell his story. And what he's saying is, when we started our ship, our voyage, our ocean voyage, everything was great. Everybody cheered us. The water was great. And, the ship was great. And we sailed off. So the mariner tells how the ship sailed southward with a good wind and fair weather till it reached the line. Now, remember, again, the line is the equator, right? Okay. The sun came up upon the left. Out of the sea came he, and he shone bright, and on the right went down into the sea. So the fact that he's telling us that the sun came up on the left and then went down on the right, that's telling us that they're traveling south, right? Because the east would be to your left and the west would be to your right if you're traveling south. 2 things about that. It's just letting us know that he's traveling south, but also I want to point out that he personifies the sun. He calls him he. He shown up, he came out of the sea. Remember, romantic authors and poets are really big into nature, and they want you to be big into nature. Keep that in mind. Higher and higher every day till over the mast at noon. The wedding guest here beat his breast, for he heard the loud bassoon. So the mariner's telling the story, but the guest beats his breast. He's like, come on, I got to get up. I just heard the music. The music is starting, man. I'm in this wedding. What is the mariner going to do to the man to make him sit again? Of course, it's going to be the glittering eye. Watch. The wedding guest hears the bridal music, but the mariner continues his tale. The bride hath paced into the hall, red as a rose is she. Nodding their heads before her goes the merry minstrel. He's like, dude, there goes the bride. I gotta go. The wedding guest, he beat his breast, yet he cannot choose but hear. And thus spoke on that ancient man, that bright-eyed mariner. The ship is driven by a storm to the South Pole. Okay, so remember what he said. We were sailing along, everything was great, and then he says, all of a sudden, a storm takes us and drives us to the South Pole. Now, I don't know if you know this, but that's one heck of a storm, that it would take you from the equator all the way down to the South Pole. We're talking a wicked, vicious storm. Is a storm like that natural? I mean, all storms are natural, but the idea that it would take you that far and deposit you down at the South Pole, I'm telling you now, it's a test. He's being tested by the spirits, but we'll figure that out as we go on. Okay, so they're brought down to the South Pole. By the way, if you're a ship and it's the Middle Ages, do you want to be down in the South Pole with your ship? The answer is no. Why? Because it's cold, it's frozen. You don't have a motor to get yourself out of that. You don't have a steel boat to work through all that ice. Oh no. Getting stuck down in the South Pole with a wooden ship in the Middle Ages, probably a death sentence, probably. But again, you can say, Mr. Kenny, I know it's not a death sentence because the mariner is here telling the story to the man years later, or after the story for sure, after the journey. So, okay, so they get dragged down to the South Pole. And now the storm blast came. And notice storm blast is in all caps. So they're making it a character itself. So here comes the storm. The storm blast came, and he was tyrannous and strong. He struck with his overtaken wings and chased us south along. So he's describing the storm which comes and takes them south. It forces them south. With sloping masts and dipping prow, as who pursued with yell and foe, still treads the shadow of his foe, and forward bends his head. The ship drove fast, loud roared that blast, and southward we fled. Basically, he's saying there was nothing they could do but go south because the storm makes them go down there. And now there came both mist and snow, and it grew wondrous cold. And ice, mast high, came floating by, as green as emerald. You guys know about icebergs, right? Guys and gals, icebergs. If you have a little tip of an iceberg like this high out of the water, that means that's what I say. It's just the tip of the iceberg. The iceberg is a mountain of ice and it goes under the water. So if you see just a little tip poking out, that's not all there is. There's a giant mountain underneath that. And if your ship goes up against one of these icebergs, that's it. You're toast. Anybody who has seen Leonardo DiCaprio in Titanic knows the minute that iceberg, that your ship goes side to an iceberg, it's going to rip your keel open. You're going down. So they're in big trouble. The land of ice and of fearful sounds where no living thing was to be seen. And through the drifts, the snowy cliffs did send a dismal sheen, nor shapes of men nor beasts we ken. The ice was all between. So they realize now they're like basically encapsulated by ice. They're trapped down at the South Pole and the ice is all around them. There's nowhere they're getting through and they're looking around and they're realizing there's not even a living thing around here that they can notice. Now, are there living things down at the South Pole? Oh, heck yeah. You get your penguins, your seals, your fish, your polar bears. They are there, but they're hard to find, of course. Let's continue. The ice was here. The ice was there. The ice was all around. It crackled and growled. It roared and howled like the noises in a swound. I don't know if anybody's ever been on like a frozen lake before, but you can hear the ice. It crackles and it makes noises. It is almost like it is alive. It is not alive, but you could see how it could be because of all the noises it makes. It does. It makes a lot of scary noises. And especially if you're on a lake that you want to stay frozen and you hear all these cracks underneath your feet, it gets a little nerve-wracking. So they hear that. So at this point in time, these guys, these mariners, they're in trouble. They're probably going to die, right? They're stuck in this land of snow and ice. But then all of a sudden, a great seabird called the albatross comes through the snow fog, and we received it with great joy and hospitality. So remember, they're stuck, and one of the things that's really freaking them out is the idea that they're like alone in this wilderness of ice. But then all of a sudden, they see this bird, an albatross, and if you look up albatrosses, OMG, albatrosses are huge birds. They're about 10 feet long in wingspan. They can fly for hours without even flapping their wings. They just fly above. They ride the currents, and they can often be found down in the South Pole. So, I mean, they can be found all over the globe, but they're predominant down in the South Pole. They're a cold weather bird. They are known as being a bird of good luck to sailors. That when you see one of these things, that it just means that you're either near land or that it's going to shepherd you to land. So sailors for time immemorial have always thought of these as good luck birds, right? This story takes that legend and it magnifies it. So now you're always going to hear this phrase, an albatross, especially an albatross around somebody's neck. That will come up in a moment. That's something you will hear and you will now understand. So here comes this bird, and they all cheer it. Hey, look, beautiful bird. There's something alive. Maybe there's a chance for us, right? Everything's looking up. Listen. At length did cross an albatross. Through the fog it came. As if it had been a Christian soul. We hailed it in God's name. Okay, so when they see this bird coming, they start saying, look at the creature of God. Look how beautiful it is. Oh, thank God there's something alive. Oh, thank God it's here. Who's listening? Not just God. Remember, who's listening down there at the South Pole? The South Pole Spirit is listening and watching these guys, right? In fact, I believe personally, this is just Mr. Kenny speaking, that it was the South Pole Spirit who brought them down here to give them a test. And the South Pole Spirit is testing them on how good they are or how they react to and towards nature, and in this case, to this bird. So the bird, they're all encapsulated by ice. It looks like they're going to die, and then this great bird flies around them, and they start praying for it and praising it in God's name. So if you're the South Pole Spirit, at this time, you give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down to these people. Dude, this is a double thumbs up. Nice job, everybody. Thank you for praising this bird, my loving bird, my pal. Let's see what happens. It ate the food it had never ate, and round it flew. You know what I think it ate the food it had never ate means? I think the mariners, the sea guys, are doing what as it flies around? I think they're throwing food up to it, pieces of meat or bread, and I think they're catching it and eating it. So not only did they pray for it and praise it, but now they're feeding them. So if you're the South Pole Spirit, you're like, my guys, nice job, let's go, good job, good work. The ice did split with a thunder fit. The helm's been steered us through. So directly after, they're in trouble. Then the bird comes, they praise it, they feed it, and the minute after that happens, the ice cracks open and a pathway opens for them. The South Pole Spirit is freeing them and letting them go back to their lives. They have passed the test for now. In Mr. Cloud. And lo, the albatross proves a bird of good omen and follows the ship as it returns northward through the fog and floating ice. And a good south wind sprung up from behind. The albatross did follow. And every day, for food or play, came to the mariner's hollow. Whoa, wait a minute. And a good south wind, so not only does it open up, but so wind opens up behind them and starts pushing them towards the north, right? And every day for food or play, it came to the mariner's hollow. So it's like, it became almost like the mariner's, his pet almost. He was like, hey, bird. And it would come to him and it would fly around him and he would feed it and whatnot. So it's like become like their mascot of all things. In Mr. Cloud on Master Shroud, it perched for Vespers 9. So you don't know this, but Vespers are actually evening church services. So every night, all the shipmen would come together and they would pray. They would have their church services. And it turns out this bird every night would perch and listen and watch their church services. It would not take part in their Vespers, but it would certainly watch them. That's pretty wild that it would do it every single night. That tells us that it definitely is the South Pole Spirit's bird, and that this South Pole Spirit works for God all the way through because the bird is interested in hearing about the praise for God. Let's continue. Whilst all the night through the fog smoke white glimmered the white moonshine. Okay, so everything looks like it's great, but here's the problem. This is just part one of this poem, and something bad is about to happen. Can anybody guess what bad thing is about to happen, or what bad thing the Ancient Mariner is going to do? Because right now he's passing this test with flying colors. What is it that he's going to do or can do that's going to have him fail this test magnificently and really, really anger that South Pole Spirit? Hurt the bird. But why would you hurt the bird? Why would anybody hurt anything in nature? I mean, the bird is helping them. It's kind of like its pet. So I'll ask you this. In the world, do people sometimes hurt animals for fun and for no other reason than just to do it? And the awful and sad answer is yes, they do. I'm going to tell you a story in the next part about something that my friends and I did when we were young, which was really stupid. And I still feel I didn't do it, but I kind of did in a weird way. And I'll talk about that in a minute, about how we were bad to nature. And I don't know, maybe there's a spirit still after me and my buddies. We'll see. So let's finish this up. Last one. God save the, I'm sorry. The Ancient Mariner inhospitably kills the pious bird of good omen. So right at this point, when we hear it's, I'm going to read this again. In Mr. Cloud on Master Shroud, it perched for Vespers 9, while as all the night through fog smoke white glimmered the white moon. So it's hanging out with them. This is days, 9 days. It's with them and it's their pal. But then all of a sudden, for no reason, the mariner shoots the bird. Listen, God save the Ancient Mariner from the fiends that plague thee thus. And that's who's talking to the Ancient Mariner? The wedding guest. So we're breaking back out of the frame. And he looks at the Ancient Mariner and he goes, oh my God, what's wrong with you? Because while you're telling the story, you looked fine and normal. But now when you get to this point, you get this look on your face of total dismay and horror. So the wedding guest goes, oh my God, why do you look so scared and sad? God save the Ancient Mariner from the fiends that plague thee thus. So again, we're out of the frame again, and we're now outside the wedding. And the wedding guest is asking the mariner, dude, what's wrong? Why do you look like that? Why do you look so bad? And the mariner says, why lookest thou so? Well, with my crossbow, I shot the albatross. That's the end of part one. We will stop there for now. Basically, I think you can guess what's going to happen here. The Ancient Mariner is in a lot of trouble. Who's after him now? Oh, yeah. South Pole Spirit's after him. The South Pole Spirit's pissed. Dude, you killed my bird? The bird that I sent to help you? What are you kidding me? So the rest of this poem is going to be about the South Pole Spirit taking it out on the Ancient Mariner. Also, the Ancient Mariner has 200 sailors on board this ship. What about them? Should the South Pole Spirit go after them? Did they have anything to do with the killing of this bird? The answer is no. But the South Pole Spirit is watching them now, watching to see how they react to the killing of the bird, right? So if they freak out, scream at the Ancient Mariner, tie him up, chain him up, throw him overboard, make him walk the plank, then the South Pole Spirit's going to be like, good job, thank you very much, you backed up my bird. But if they cheer him and say, great job, man, that was awesome, woohoo, you shot the heck out of that bird, good shot, dude, nice, then they're in trouble too. So let's see how they react as well. Have a great day. Thank you very much. Part one of The Ancient Mariner, done.